The latest from our daily newsletter at podnews.net. We start with an exclusive today. Popular podcast app Player FM has undergone a redesign, incorporating more prominent access to video podcasts, larger podcast cover art, and playlist creation. We asked them what they've done and how podcasters can help. You'll find that linked from our show notes and our newsletter today. I asked Spotify for all of my personal data to find out that Spotify knows what kind of car I drive and what length podcast I prefer. I go into this in an article you'll find linked today in our show notes and our newsletter. I'll also go into why Spotify will never know as much as Apple or Google. Meanwhile, 9to5Mac says Spotify falls short as a podcast app. It hasn't stopped it from being number one in many markets, though. Challenges of measurement and the limitations of host-read ads were the subject of discussion at the IAB podcast upfront, according to Digiday. Boomcaster is a recently launched remote recording tool that also live streams to YouTube and Facebook. And the Australian Podcast Awards has announced new partners and their judging lineup. Acast is the headline partner, Listener is gold partner, and another partner is Podnews. It's a Monday, so time for some tech stuff. Dave Jackson has released a new episode of Leading the Bleeding. It's an edit of a Zoom meeting last week. He's also made a video enabling your podcast to receive Bitcoin, which describes how he set that show up for value, a way of earning cryptocurrency from your listeners. And as part of Dave's Zoom meeting, we foolishly promised to make a podcast search engine that only shows value-for-value-enabled podcasts. So we did. You'll find it at podnews.net/search. Earn Satoshis with your podcast? Want to spend that in the real world? Moon lets you transfer sats into single-use Visa cards to pay for stuff online. It seems US only for now. Another alternative apparently is Bitrefill. Podcast hosting solution JustCast now supports value for value and sound bites, they've said. And we link to another fancy graph showing how the Lightning Network, which enables value for value, is all connected together. And in podcast news, take one guitar, send it on tour across Australia to some of the country's best singer-songwriters and get them to write new songs with it. That's the theory behind this podcast, One Guitar. Today's episode features Bernard Fanning from Brisbane's Powderfinger, and not Bernard Manning, who's somebody else entirely. The Guilty Feminist has switched from Libsyn to be distributed and monetized by Acast. The show will launch a number of spin-offs later this year. We also spot an Acast logo on their network, which appears a new piece of branding from the company's shows. The Outer Sanctum has also switched from the ABC to be distributed and monetized by Acast. The show covers Aussie rules football, hosted by 10 passionate women fans. That also has an Acast logo on their artwork too, but in a different place and looking a bit different. Anyway, we're spotting a pattern, kind of. The Just Enough family launched last week. It's the true story of this Steinberg family, produced by 3 Uncanny 4 productions. It covers how this seemingly invincible clan fell apart and what happens to your podcast if you die. In School of Podcasting, Dave Jackson asks entertainment lawyer Gordon Firemark. And that's the latest from our newsletter. For all the links, we're at podnews.net.